Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. Today I'm bringing you a face from the past. Alexander MacRae Dechman was the founder of Grand Prairie, and he actually, a lot of people don't realize that the town was originally called Dechman after this man and wasn't changed to the name of Grand Prairie until the 1900s. So I just got a little curious today. I thought I'd do a little bit of digging and bring y'all some information about the man who founded the city of Grand Prairie, Alexander MacRae Dechman. He was born on October 18, 1830 in Halifax, Nova Scotia. He was of Scotch lineage both on his paternal and maternal sides. His grandfather, James Dechman, left Massachusetts as a loyalist and moved to Canada after the Battle of Bunker Hill. Alexander MacRae Dechman, or A.M. Dechman as he was often called, came to Texas in 1851 by way of the Atlantic coast and through the Gulf of Mexico. He entered the state at Port Lavaca, Texas. He traveled to San Antonio and became employed at the firm James R. Sweet and Company, which was a mercantile establishment, which would play into a lot of his career as he went on throughout his life. He met and befriended a man named Bigfoot Wallace, a famous Texas Ranger who was a skilled trailing expert and a soldier. And for a few years, he accompanied him on a lot of adventures throughout Texas. In 1855, he established a general merchandise business in Old Fort Belknap. There weren't any railroads in what would become North Texas at the time, so merchandise from stores was transported by wagon back and forth to Houston, a trip that would take 3 months and would require him to become used to the strenuous life of the frontier. Interactions with the Indians at this time were frequent, and on one trip, his oldest son, who was a baby, was actually stolen by the Indians, though he was eventually recaptured and returned back to his home. While in Fort Belknap, he served as Chief Justice of Young County, which would now be called a county judge, and he was the second person to hold that seat. From there, Dechman and his family relocated to Tarrant County, and in 1859, Dechman was elected county tax assessor. In 1861, at the inception of the Civil War, Dechman joined the Confederate Army and became a major in the Parsons Brigade, and he served in the Army until 1867. In 1863, while he was on a trip delivering supplies from Jacksonville, Texas to Fort Belknap for the Army commissary, his wagon broke down near the current area of downtown Grand Prairie, and he traded a wagon, an ox team, and $200 in Confederate money for a 239-acre tract of land. Grand Prairie was originally known as Dechman in 1874 when it received its first post office on land that was donated by A.M. Dechman. He was not a stranger to land ownership in his life, though. He owned 100 acres of the Imlich Survey, which is mostly in modern-day North Richland Hills, as well as 300 acres in Dallas and an additional 200 acres in another part of Texas. Dechman did try to build a house on the land that was later called Grand Prairie, but wasn't able to due to complications from the war. So he did found the town, but he never actually lived in it. From what I found, he donated a lot of the land to a variety of people and organizations, including the post office, the railroad, and the land where the First Methodist Church was built. The town was renamed Grand Prairie after confusion from the railroad. After looking at a map, the area between Dallas and Fort Worth was called the Grand Prairie by Dallas, and the name just kind of stuck. Dechman donated half of the land to the Texas and Pacific Railroad in exchange for them running a depot there. Dechman was a capitalist, a prominent businessman, and in 1860, it shows that his real estate was worth $2,000, which would be $60,000 in today's money, and personal property, which was valued at about $5,275, or about $164,000 in today's terms. I did find that part of his personal property did include 4 adult slaves. At the end of the war in 1867, Dechman and his family decided to move to Houston to start a business there, but after the death of one of his daughters and an outbreak in Houston of yellow fever, Dechman finally settled in Bryan, Texas, and was in the mercantile business from 1867 to 1878. He moved to Waxahachie, had a presence there, and then finally he lived in Dallas on part of his 300 acres of land, where he did die in 1915. Dechman was an Odd Fellow, which I had to look up because I didn't know what that was. It's a fraternal, non-political organization that was founded in 1819, and he held the title of Grand Master over the years. He was also heavily involved with the Methodist Church and was on the Board of Trustees for the Widows and Orphans Home in Corsicana. He continued to serve his civic duty in a variety of ways until his death, including organizing reunions for the veterans of his unit, and was considered an early pioneer of Texas. He was also a very smart man and had rugged physical powers of the Scotch race from which he was sprung. Dechman was referred to widely in many publications as Major Dechman from the time of his service in the Confederate Army until his death. In 2006, the U.S. House of Representatives designated the post office building at 802 South Carrier Parkway to be Alexander MacRae Dechman Post Office Building. January 2nd of 2006 was declared Dechman Day in Grand Prairie in honor of the date in 1863 that Mr. Dechman filed the deed for land that was now Grand Prairie. I had a lot of fun looking him up. It was fun looking in papers. He was a very traveled man. He did a lot of traveling to go see friends and family. And I would try to find more information about him with Bigfoot, the man known as Bigfoot Wallace, who he was an interesting character. I'd love to do just a story on him, although he has nothing to do with Grand Prairie. But I tried to find more information about their exploits together, but I couldn't seem to find any in what I had available to me. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little mini episode. That was a Faces of Grand Prairie from the past. And leave a comment if you have a question so that we can put you on one of the episodes coming up, or if you just want to talk to me about a possible subject of the podcast. We do have some great interviews coming up in the next few weeks. And thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next episode.